Hi all, this is Dr. Mohammad Usman and welcome to my video on Bloom's Taxonomy of Learning Part 1. First of all, I would like to thank all the people who have commented on my LinkedIn and who have requested me to make up this video. I received a lot of valuable feedback in my inbox, in the comments, and a lot of comments like how I should proceed further. So I have converted my article into form of a short video, and before we move forward, I will say that whenever we are going to think about the Bloom's Taxonomy, we should not feel like we have to fill the information into the mind of the other people. We have to go step by step and we have to make sure the fire ignites like day by day and time by time to reach up the last level of to the Bloom's Taxonomy itself. So let's start with the very basics of the Bloom's Taxonomy, the history of it. So it all started back in 1956 when Benjamin Bloom came up with a model which is called Original Bloom's Taxonomy Model. And the purpose of this model was to analyze the student learning. So basically it started from the very starting level, which was knowledge. So if you can see that the knowledge was based on recall of information like discovery, observation, listening, or naming up the thing. So it was the very basic thinking from the start of this level. Then the second level you see is comprehension. So it was a little bit more above than the knowledge one, and it's about understanding, translating, summarizing, and discussing the things. Then the third level of the original Bloom's taxonomy you can see is the application. And then after understanding the knowledge, after demonstrating the knowledge, it moves toward like using and applying that knowledge. And then after that application of that knowledge, you move forward with identification of different patterns of knowledge, different organizations of ideas. And then you move with like converting the old ideas into creating new ideas. And then you compare your ideas together to come out with something that's like you create yourself. So you can see that the original Bloom's taxonomy had 6 levels. So we normally have, you will see all Bloom's taxonomy will have 6 levels, starting with knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Now what happened after 1956? They thought that there is a need to revise the Bloom's taxonomy. So in 2001, the Bloom's taxonomy was revised, but there was no major changes, just the change from noun to the verb form. So what happened that from knowledge, it changed to remember. Okay, the concept inside remains the same. From comprehension, it was changed to understanding. From application, it became apply. From analysis, it became analyze. There was a major shift from the top 2 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So synthesis became the top level as a create, and evaluation became a 5th level into the Bloom's taxonomy and called evaluate. Okay, the initial concepts inside are still the same. So it was just shifting. So they thought that if one student has to start from the remembering, and then the student will understand the concept, then he will apply the concept, then he will analyze based on to the application, then he will evaluate, and he will create something that will be new based on his ideas, based on his evaluation, based on his analysis, and the lower hierarchy of the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So nowadays you will see another Bloom's taxonomy which is usually called with different names. One of the name is that digital Bloom's taxonomy. The second name is Bloom's taxonomy wedge. It is based onto the same concept. Like the first phase you see over here is remembering. Second is understanding. Third is applying. And onto the 4th level you will find analysis, evaluation, and creation. Now what happens onto this level that they have made the 4th level and all of these 3 as the higher level of thinking itself. So when you reach this level, it means that whatever you are going to do, whatever your students are going to do, it will involve analysis, evaluation, and creation. And it is not about that you are going to give up a question on analysis, then you are going to give up a question on evaluation, and you are going to give up a question on creation. What happens that even if you are going to give up a question on creation, the creation question automatically involves evaluation and automatically involves analysis. So you don't have to put a particular question itself there that, okay, analyze first this and then evaluate this thing and then create something. So if you are going on to a higher level of Bloom's taxonomy, just keep in mind that it will involve the lower levels automatically. Now let's move forward with different definitions onto the Bloom's taxonomy levels and what kind of questions we can create. So basically I will go into the details of this Bloom's taxonomy wedge at later stages, because it is itself another topic onto the digital Bloom's taxonomy. So we'll go it onto the later stages into another video itself. So let's start from the first level of remembering knowledge. So as I've shown you onto the Bloom's taxonomy itself, you are now onto the level 1. So level 1 is talking about recall of the information itself. So into the recalling information, we usually say that this is starting from the lower order of the thinking. So in remembering, it is just the basic thing about like how you can recall the information, how you can repeat the information, how you can write the information, how you can list the information. And onto the basis of that, you can make up some question that will test the understanding of the students onto the remembering level itself. So remembering is the very basic level onto the starting onto the Bloom's taxonomy. Now comprehension is the second level onto the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So in the Bloom's taxonomy, if you will see it here, it's onto the second level. So when we talk about comprehension, understanding, so now we are moving from remembering to a in-depth understanding from our student itself or from our learners itself. So whatever they have remembered, now we want them to write in their own words. I've given different example of the questions over here, but it depends on to the nature of the assessment itself. It depends on to the nature of the information that you want to test from the students. So basically questions can be different from scenario to scenario. So the keywords can include describing something, distinguishing something, explaining something, interpretation, prediction, recognition, or you can even ask them summarize something. So these include your Bloom's taxonomy level 2 questions. So a normal question, if I give an example, it can be how would you compare? So if you see that you don't need to use this keyword at the start over here, okay? So you can still say that how you would compare, how you will predict something, how you will explain something, okay? Can you explain me this certain idea? So it's not necessary that every question start with one word from explain or interpret or from different level of the Bloom's taxonomy itself. There is one thing that we are going to test the understanding of the student onto a certain level. We are not trying to make our question so difficult that student doesn't know it, and then we have to go back to our students and we have to tell them, okay, this is the meaning of this question itself. So then the purpose of the Bloom's taxonomy is not complete, because now we are not developing the understanding of the student itself. We are telling them clearly that, okay, in interpret something, you have to do something itself. We have to make sure our students understand themselves, their questions, and they develop their thinking. This is the purpose of Bloom's taxonomy. So you have to give some questions that are going to test their thinking, okay? So the question that tests their thinking should not have Bloom's taxonomy as the first word. You have to make easy for them rather than difficult for them. So this is the second level. Now the third level is the application level, which is called transformation of knowledge. So it is building on to the Bloom's taxonomy level, starting from knowledge. They have recalled the information. Now they have understood the information, and now we want them to use that information for applying into a certain scenario. So it can be using a certain method into a certain application or apply certain method for a certain scenario based on to the information which they have acquired previously from understanding level and from the comprehension level itself. So the question can be based on comparison of different items. It can be based on contrast of different items. You can ask the question from the student that how would you use a certain information, how would you apply a certain information, what are the facts you understood and how you are going to examine the facts, how would you relate the certain product to a certain scenario itself, or like a simple question like usually you have seen into the math that solve this thing, okay? So these are some of the things that are about application. So you are going to test their understanding that how they can apply the certain thing or a certain model or a certain knowledge which they have learned before into a scenario. So at this moment you can give them scenario based questions that will test their application of their knowledge. And usually you can also say that from this level the case study also starts. So in the case study most of the time students have to apply the knowledge which they have learned from the class lectures, which they have learned from their self-study. So it's about application of knowledge. And normally they say that from here the higher order thinking starts. So you are moving toward one by one on to the next level. So put your knowledge to use to implement your understanding. So if you see that it is building onto the lower level itself. So if you ask a question on to the application level, it will automatically include the remembering and knowledge. So you don't have to ask a question on remembering or a knowledge itself, because without them they cannot reach onto a certain level. So now we are on to the fourth level. If you see in the Bloom's taxonomy, this is about analysis. So now they have recalled the information, they have understood the information, they have applied the information. Now we want them to analyze different patterns from that information, that how they can organize their ideas into a certain scenario, that how they can implement them, how they can make relationship from two different models. So you are now going to make the students to show that how they can subdivide the information. So their analysis, okay. So the question can include different terminologies that can be based on differentiation again, that can be based on relation again, that can be based on research, that can be based on separate. So there are many different keywords in Bloom's taxonomy itself. So particularly it depends on that what you want to test from the student. So question sample of them which are given here is based on that. What is the relationship between product A and B? What is the evidence you find by analysis of a certain model? So if you see that in this question, they already include the remembering, they already include the knowledge which they have, they already include the application level, and then they are performing the analysis. Is this model good enough to give you an output according to the requirements? This is also a kind of analysis. So case study analysis also include on this level, because into case study you can ask the questions that how you are going to perform the analysis itself. So I'm giving just you one example of one type of assessment. There are many different type of assessments that are like a different, like a whole video can be made on it and different concept can be made. So this is just onto the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So at this moment you are developing the critical thinking of the students. So you don't have to say that critically analyze something, because automatically and on analysis phase they are thinking critically. So similarly, if you are going to ask a question on analysis level, so it will include the application, remembering, and the knowledge itself. Because if you see some of the keywords you will find out in analysis from the lower level itself. Why the keywords are repetitive? Because the concept is the same. If you ask the same question on to the analysis level itself, it will include the previous three concepts from the Bloom's taxonomy lower levels. So if you reach a certain level, you have to go step by step. So asking a question will make sure the student has done or the performed the previous three levels itself. So this was the fourth level. Now we are going one level above, which is the fifth level. Normally what happens that up to third level and fourth level, they ask the question into the bachelor's degree, because the students are into the starting, they are learning up the things, and they are not reached up onto the level which is like onto the application level itself. But you can still ask the questions from the student even into the bachelor's level on to the evaluation and the creation. So there is no harm in that, because you have to develop the student thinking onto the Bloom's taxonomy level. So when they move forward into their master degree, they know that how they can create certain idea, how they can create certain information, and indirectly they are doing it. But as an instructor, most of the time we say that okay, they are not developing that thing. But whenever a student is going to bring up some creative idea, whenever the student is going to apply some knowledge, whenever the student is going to analyze something, it is already involved over there. So now onto this level, you are going to make sure your students are going to evaluate a certain information. So now the judgment is there. So if you see that the in this one, you are going to bring all the pieces of information together. So when they have analyzed the information, now what they understand that from that information, what is their evaluation? So now they will make their own opinions. They can debate on to the decisions. They can talk about different specific criteria, that onto certain criteria number A, this will happen. Onto certain criteria number B, this will happen. So the questions can be that how could you prove this algorithm is good? How you could prove that this model is good? How would you prioritize? How would you evaluate the applications of a certain thing? How would you perform or recommend something. So this is evaluation phase. You are now developing up their thinking onto the evaluation, like their opinion. So you can ask them some questions about their opinion itself. So even you are going to ask from the recommendation is like the normal question that you can ask, and normally we have in like an all assessment, like recommend something. So at this level automatically they will have evaluation, but they cannot recommend unless they have from starting from the lower levels of to the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So if you are going to ask a question onto this level, evaluate level, so it will automatically involve your analysis, application, understanding, and remember, because without that student cannot reach up into this level itself. So you don't need to ask first the analysis question, then you have to ask the evaluate question. You can ask the question directly onto a certain level, and the student thinking will be developed automatically on that one. If student is not able to answer the question onto that level, it means that the lower order thinking is still not developed. Okay, so this is one thing. So now we have the last level, which is synthesis, creating, the highest level, and it is about, now you have evaluate something, so it's about creation of something. So at this level we expect student to come out with their own ideas from different sources. So normally we say that on this level students are going to review different sources, and onto the base of their different sources they are going to come out with their some new idea. So they can present their own model, they can produce some results, they can induce something from that information itself, they can design something. And designing means that even they are going to design up a flow chart, but so it's also a creation. So they understood the information, they applied that information, they evaluated the information, and they came back with their own flow chart itself. So these are the creation level itself, the question which we can ask in on to this level itself. So these questions have the same keywords in particular level from the previous one based on to that one. So they can combine certain ideas, they can develop some ideas, they can formulate something, they can organize the ideas. So there are many different activities, many different questions that can be asked. Okay, so different activities, different things we can do from the students when we are going on to the Bloom's taxonomy level itself. So the last level is the creation level, and we have reached on to this level. So normally we say that analysis, evaluation, and creation is just for the masters, and remember, understanding and application is just at the bachelor's level. But I will always say that we should go on to the top level or to the Bloom's taxonomy, and we are going on to that level into our bachelor's degrees itself. Okay, but it should be progressive. So if it is a master degree or it is a bachelor degree, so normally the starting courses you are going to start from the lower levels, and when you go reach up to the like from semesters from 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 onwards, you are trying to develop up their thinking, so they can create something, they can evaluate something, they can analyze something. So sometime you will see that there will be some questions and some exams that will be based on solving something. So when you are talking about solution, you are automatically on to the level of like evaluation itself. You are asking them about recommendation of something. So it doesn't depend on to the assessment itself. If I say that, it depends on how you are asking the information from the student. So whatever the type of exam is there, whatever the type of activity is there, you have to see that what you want as an outcome of that thing. That's the basic part of the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So without that you cannot reach that what you want to achieve. Okay, so this was all about from the Bloom's taxonomy itself. My previous article is already there onto the Bloom's taxonomy on LinkedIn. You can see from my profile itself. If you write my name onto the Google itself, you will find out my profile and you can visit up there. So this video will be also posted onto the same newsletter, and you can go through this. And if you have any feedback, any comments for improvement, it's open, and you can contact me back to the LinkedIn itself, and you can send me a message. Thank you very much for your time. I hope so you understand the basic levels, and I will come up with the second video because the Bloom's taxonomy itself has so many details. So I will come up with the second video on going into step by step different depth of the Bloom's taxonomy itself. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Bye bye for now.